The cruiser Dawn, reborn in the Rift, returns to Earth with its symbiotic crew and exposes the truth about the Reapers, cosmic erasure engines grown by the ancient architects. By uniting the shattered remnants of human fleets and the chaotic power of memory, the heroes destroy the first Reaper at Saturn and incinerate an entire nursery of dormant monsters inside the Triangulum Rift. Their ultimate weapon is the Axiom Seed, a core that funnels emotions, jokes, and unfinished stories into irrational probabilities the architects' algorithms can't control. While rescuing the agrarian world of Crown Refuge, the team plants Paradox Orchards, turning the planet into a living barrier where any imposed order collapses beneath human imagination. Now the awakened flotilla races toward the Sculptor Wall to hack the architect's central nexus and rewrite their gospel of erasure with humanity's own dream of freedom. Stay with us if you want to see how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe. The darkness above Neptune rippled, twisting starlight into a spiral that should not exist. Every telescope on Luna's far side array caught the distortion at once, and for 3 full seconds humanity watched the sky physically refuse its own shape. When the spiral collapsed, something remained, an obsidian-skinned leviathan a kilometer long, all edges aflame with ultraviolet fire. The registration plate, half erased by alien alloys, still read HSS Resolute Dawn. 15 years earlier, the Dawn had slipped beyond the Triangulum expanse, hunting rumors of a Dyson-scale catastrophe. Its crew of 2,000 volunteers were memorialized in marble when the ship vanished without a trace. Now it hung at the edge of Sol like a returned ghost, slick with technology that did not obey Euclidean geometry. Orbitals flared crimson, warning of intrusion. The United Terran Vanguard scrambled interceptors, their pilots whispering oaths none believed they would live to keep. Admiral Maya Argent watched from the command gallery of Arkhangelsk Station, arms folded so tightly her bones creaked. Her sister Leah had served as the Dawn's chief xenoscientist. Maya had mourned, raged, and finally learned to live with the shape of that absence. Seeing the ship again felt like tearing open a scar that had only scabbed, never healed. An incoming transmission cracked across every secure band, a live feed, not the cautious burst one expected from a lost expedition. Static parted to reveal Captain Elias Thorne, or the thing that bore his name. Metallic tendrils veined his neck, and the whites of his eyes burned golden. His smile was too calm. "Maya," he said, as if they were alone, "we found the cradle of the harvesters, and we broke it. But breaking it woke them. They're coming 3 cycles, maybe 4. Sol is bright on their charts. They will not ignore us. We've brought weapons the Vanguard doesn't own, but they are bound to us. If Earth wants to live, it must change as we have. Open your docks." Every sensor screamed at once. In the Oort cloud, 6 early warning buoys blinked out like snuffed candles. Gravitic lenses mapped a mass approaching that eclipsed asteroids whole, an organism threaded through hyperspace, devouring vacuum, leaving entropy in its wake. The first harvester. The Terran Council fractured along old scars. On Mars, governors demanded a quarantine strike, cripple the Dawn, capture its crew, learn its scalpel's length. Europa's pacifists called the Dawn humanity's mutation, proof the species had already surrendered its soul. The orbital forums drowned in conjecture, but Maya heard only her sister's voice from a decade of personal logs. "If we do not grow faster than our fears, we die of them." She keyed a private channel. "Elias, if you're still my captain, prove it. Dock at Arkhangelsk. Alone. No tricks." The Dawn answered by shedding a sliver of itself, a sleek corvette that unfolded from the main hull like an iron blossom. It drifted under silent thrusters toward the station. Maya marched to Dock 12, every corridor thrumming with evacuation klaxons she had personally muted. The airlock cycled. Out stepped Leah Argent. Not the memory Maya kept, but a taller, radiant echo whose skin shimmered with motes of living circuitry. She spoke first. "The universe is unreasonably old, sister. We have seconds left unless we steal fire from whatever gods remain." She extended a hand. "I'm offering you the match." Maya stared, breath ragged. What did it cost? Sleep. A few bones. Never our humanity. Leah's eyes, brighter than any medical August, softened. "Come aboard. Let the Dawn show you." Inside, bulkheads pulsed with a heartbeat that was part machine, part crew. Soldiers moved like dancers, their actions predicted by the ship's neural lattice before muscles fired. At the core hung the Axiom Seed, a sphere of supercompressed space-time, stolen from the ruins of the Harvester birthing grounds. It bent probability, rewriting middling truths, mass became suggestion, distance a polite fiction. With it, the Dawn had survived 15 years in a place time forgot, but the seed was fraying. Each use risked unraveling reality inside Sol as surely as the Harvesters would from without. Elias met Maya beside the sphere. "We can map the Harvester's weak forces, its tendril knots, pulse vents, entropy glands. But the seed needs minds woven into it, commanders who can think faster than light curves. That means grafting. No half measures." Maya's uniform felt suddenly archaic, like chainmail before railguns. She pictured Earth's blue cradle, billions unaware that extinction sprinted toward them. She thought of Leah, altered yet unmistakably herself, and heard the old whisper grow faster than fear. "I volunteer," she said. The grafting pod opened, silken filaments kissing vertebrae, flooding blood with quantum symbiotes cold as lunar dawn. Pain burned away language, then lit something brighter behind it. Maya rose minutes, hours later, every heartbeat synchronized to the dawn's deeper rhythm. Thought blurred to intent. Intent slipped into machine response. The ship sang acknowledgement, and in the song she felt 1,000 voices braided tight. Alarm klaxons cut through the hymn. The outer sensor mesh shattered. Visual telemetry painted the harvester sliding from superlight drift, a moon-sized lattice of calcified dark energy, studded with ventral maws that drank solar wind like wine. Saturn's bow shock storm thrashed as the creature's gravity rewrote equations. Elias flared the seed to 15%. Space-time yawned, and the dawn punched from Neptune's orbit to a point just 50,000 clicks off the monster's dorsal ridge. Maya's new senses tasted the harvester's event field, sweet, corrosive, infinite. She targeted a vent cluster. Fire. The dawn's spinal lance tore existence sideways, a bolt of inverted mass that howled in every frequency except sound. It speared the vent. The harvester convulsed, shedding kilotons of crystallized plasma. Good. Damage, but nowhere near fatal. What came next was not a counterattack but a memory. The harvester broadcast extinction, visions of oceans boiled to mist, cities folded into point singularities, laughter strangled mid-breath. Maya's augmented mind flinched, symbiotes gnawed at terror, wove it into rage. She steadied. Again, she ordered. The seed shrieked. Probability peeled. Reality spider cracked along the beam's wake. A second vent collapsed inward, chain reacting into the creature's entropy glands. For the first time in eons, a harvester felt pain. It screamed in mathematics older than planets, hurling tendrils thousands of kilometers wide. The dawn sidestepped between instants, but Arkhangelsk station was slower. 2 tendrils brushed its shield curtain. The station evaporated. 3,000 souls turned to neutrino drizzle. Maya felt each death as a spark snuffed in her newly widened perception. Her voice, when it came, was ice. Coordinate with Vanguard remnants. Pull every rail slug, every plasma spine, in where we carve. We blinded. They bleeded. Fleets converged, frigates patched from scrapyards, refinery tugs mounting fusion lances, pirate cutters answering an open distress code none thought they'd ever honor. Human ships were fragile, ugly, mismatched, and together they were wildfire. Each dawn strike peeled armor, and the ragged armada peppered the wounds with molten tungsten. But the seed was unraveling, threads snapping one by one. Leah collapsed at Bionode 3, neural lattice oversaturated. Elias locked his jaw, calculating ruin against victory. Even augmented, the crew's mortal cores could not outpace cosmic attrition. In minutes the seed would implode, turning dawn into a microquasar. Maya flashed a command through the link. Override. Solo sync. She severed every tether but her own, dumping the seed's psychic load into her skull. Pain beyond mapping knifed through, but she held, vision whitening until only star lines remained. With a breath that felt like creation, she inverted the seed's probability vector entirely. Space convulsed. The dawn became everywhere edge, its lance fracturing into a lattice of impossible angles that caged the harvester's heart. The cage collapsed, not crushing the monster, but divorcing it from causality. The harvester flickered, half erased, its maw fields unable to anchor. One more push. Maya poured herself into the gap. Memory, hope, the scent of petrichor on old Earth fields. She spent them like fuel. The cage snapped shut. Where the harvester had bulked, nothing remained but static. Silence. Then cheers, sobs, distant calm bursts of disbelief. Humanity had slain a myth. Maya's body lay motionless in the pod, every synapse scorched. Yet her mind, entangled with the seed's shrapnel, hovered in the empty lanes between probabilities. They will come in swarms, a vast mind echo whispered. No threat, only statement. Harvesters sing each other's deaths across the dark. She could not speak, but the seed pulsed reply in her stead. Let them come. The fire has learned to bite. Outside, the dawn's hull reknit around a core now half ghost, half admiral. The ragtag fleet scattered rescue skiffs, gathering survivors, mourning the lost station. Somewhere on shattered comm bands, a child asked if the monster was done. Not done, Maya thought from within the seed's hush. This was part one of a war written before humanity crawled from tide pools. But she felt no despair, only a bright, bone-deep certainty that the species had just sprinted past its fear and found claws waiting. Far above the blue curve of Earth, the dawn rotated until her bow faced the black between galaxies. Engines warmed, hungry for the next impossible leap. Stars blurred to shivering threads as the dawn pushed through a corridor no map had ever charted. Maya's mind, half tethered to the Axiom Seed's fractured lattice, rode the slip like a second hull, feeling the physics around her ship bow and buckle. Every pulse of the drive was a drumbeat behind her sternum. Every microcourse correction felt like the ship wincing. Somewhere in the medical bay, Leah fought to stabilize the Seed's feedback, her voice hitching with exhaustion each time she spliced another coolant line straight into the quantum heart that now doubled as her sister's nervous system. The destination was not a coordinate so much as an echo. The first awakening wave of dormant harvesters had broadcast a harmonic signature, faint and wide, converging on a sector long dismissed as interstellar wasteland. The Vanguard called it Scar Zone Delta because the region's gravity wells twitched without warning, as though someone had once scraped their fingernails across the fabric of space and left gouges too deep to heal. A swarm of civilian refugees paced the dawn inside the corridor, battered corvettes, touring liners stripped of seat rows to make room for triage cots, asteroid tugs lashed together for life support redundancy. They followed because there was nowhere else to flee. The Council's planetoid bunkers were statistical jokes against an enemy that bent entropy like origami. Elias had broadcast one simple promise: stay inside the Seed's envelope, and you might reach tomorrow. He hadn't promised survival after that. Slip translation collapsed in a blaze of aurora that washed the void pink and green. Ahead, the target system glimmered wrong. Planets orbiting on inclines that defied Newton, moons spinning jagged polyhedral tracks, light itself tilting as though embarrassed by the geometry it illuminated. In the system's center loomed a superjovian world half-peeled like fruit, its upper atmosphere carved into canyon-wide spirals where sunlightning raged sideways. Embedded within those spirals floated 10 objects each the length of Manhattan, sleeper pods wrought from negative mass alloys whose surfaces bled misty glyphs. Harvesters in gestation. Maya swallowed against vertigo that wasn't entirely her own. The Seed piped threat telemetry straight into her optic nerves, her eyes filled with occult calculus. Every pod displayed a chrysalis clock counting down toward ignition. The shortest read 14 hours. A fleet of Scabrous cruisers already orbited the gas giant, alien, angular, bristling with antenna arrays like insect legs. No human registry matched them, yet the Seed offered grim context. Curators, Xenoclade Beta 3. Engineers who maintain harvester gardens in exchange for immunity. Elias flexed his gauntlet fingers against the command console. They farm extinction. We end the harvest before dawn. No one laughed at the wordplay. The battle plan relied on physics the crew still barely understood. Leah's whisper threaded through the command net, her voice weak but lucid. If we overload the Seed past partial decoherence, we can project a recursive null shell. It'll freeze the chrysalis clocks, buy us hours, maybe days. But someone has to ride the collapse inside the shell wall to keep it coherent. Maya felt every eye turned to her, though no heads moved. In the Seedlink, intent carried weight. She answered by sealing her mag boots and stepping onto the spinal transit belt. Words were unnecessary, Elias still gave them. She anchors. We hunt. The dawn vented umbral fire, dropping into a skimming trajectory so low across the gas giant's cloud deck that hydrogen storms burst in kaleidoscopic trails behind the engine wash. Skirmish wings peeled off, former pirate cutters retrofitted with microseed shards that let them dart like thought. They slashed the curator picket lines before alarms fully rippled, plasma shearing through hulls grown brittle from millennia of vacuum corrosion. On the Dawn's dorsal spine, hex shields bloomed white as city blocks, flickering domes of probability denial. Maya jacked her consciousness deeper, letting the Seed braid her sensations with qubits that flickered between real and hypothetical. Pain and exaltation merged into one burning note too bright for mortal chords. She became the shell's pulse. Time kinked. Outside, crew and refugees moved in normal seconds, but Maya's heartbeat spread like an ocean wave, each thump a century across microspace. With every pulse, she carved off slices of entropy, weaving them into walls that ringed the sleeping harvesters. Their chrysalis clocks stuttered, then stalled, digital snow across their glyph skin. The garden froze mid-germination. The curators screamed in psionic bandwidth. Hull cruisers banked suicidally, trying to ram the Dawn. One succeeded. Impact blossomed in a violet nova that should have torn a hole through decks and crew. Instead, the null shell drank the kinetic spike, converting it to stillness. Wreckage hung crystallized in airless hush. Maya felt blood trickle from her nose, tasted copper and vacuum. She needed relief cycles, someone else to shoulder the anchor load. The Seed suggested 3 candidates by neural resonance. The list ended with Leah. Not yet, Maya ordered, pushing her sister's icon aside. Outside, the skirmish fight spiraled into slaughter. Curator hulls fractured under tungsten nails, their insect limbs flailing as decompression yanked crews into starfire. Yet victory birthed new dilemmas. With every destroyed vessel, the null shell strained, feeding on released energy until filaments shimmered dangerously thin. Elias directed boarding parties instead, capture not kill. Pressure doors blew, Marines poured in, pulse blades humming. Inside curator data holds they found libraries of living algorithms, maps to hundreds more gardens scattered like mines across local group skies. They also found warnings. The architects are returning to cull their wards. Marines beamed the intel to the dawn. Leah's voice, rag-edged, threaded through command. If architects travel by harvest-or-wake cycles, we have, she paused. Parsing probability 7 months before the first scout reaches Soul Vector. On any normal bridge that statement would have iced spines, frozen daring. But the dawn ran on brighter fuel. Elias's grin flashed feral. Then we finish our errands here inside 6. The dormant harvesters still needed killing. The null shell could not hold forever, and conventional munitions ricocheted off the pods like rain on steel. Leah proposed an ablation cascade. Plant seed splice singularity charges at every pod's navel vein, then collapse them simultaneously to shred the embryos within tempest of inverted gravity. Planting meant EVA at the lip of a gas giant hurricane where winds hit Mach 30 and lightning bolts measured in megatons. Volunteers lined up before orders were spoken, Vanguard lifers, Martian clan raiders, a pacifist from Europa who admitted he'd never fired a gun but had steady hands for fuses. Suits laced with adaptive mesh slipped through decompression gates. Tethers glowed golden as they vanished into marigold clouds. Below, the hurricane's eye was cathedral vast, a shaft of calm dotted with floating islands of frozen metallic hydrogen. The pods anchored here, moored by cables thicker than city towers. Their glyphs pulsed dull red, sensing interference. Maya partitioned a slice of awareness to guide the saboteurs, overlaying trajectories onto their visors, damping inertia spikes with microbursts from Dawn's allocentric thrusters. She felt every bootmag kiss alien alloy, every tremor of cable as charges armed. When last switch thumbed safe to armed, she whispered across the link, on my mark. But the architects were not idle histories. A ripple swept the system in arrival. A vessel the size of Luna unfolded beyond the gas giant's far Lagrange point, plated in mirrored facets that reflected only starless black. No guns visible, no drive plumes, yet the Dawn's threat schema spiked crimson. Tier Omega probable architect warden. Its presence alone shredded curator wreckage, hulls derusting to atoms under waves of perfect vacuum. The null shell flickered as constant values around it recalibrated to the newcomer's primacy. Maya's mind screamed white, the seed hissed with quantum backlash. She locked the shell seams by raw will, pouring lifetimes of migraine agony into stabilizers. Elias hailed the behemoth on every channel. Nothing answered but silence thick as neutron star crust. He glared at tactical holos and chose language invariant across sentience, violence. Trigger cascade, he ordered. Saboteurs punched detonate. Miniature black holes bloomed, swallowing pod cores, spitting debris molten white, then snuffed in self-closure. Dormant harvesters died stillborn, their chrysalis matrices folding to zero. Across the gulf, the architect warden issued its first reply, space between it, and the dawn vanished. Not traverse, not weapon, redaction. 43 refugee craft winked out of existence, their signals truncated mid-heartbeat. Vacuum consumed their coordinates as if they had never arranged molecules to begin with. The dawn seed flared instinctively, wrapping what it could within localized narrative anchors, stories as shields, reality welded by shared cognition. Refugee liner Pilgrim Song survived because a child aboard still believed monsters could be fought with hope. The seed latched on to that belief, forged bulwarks from it. Hope snarled holographic fangs. But Maya felt anchors slip like wet rope. The warden's will was arithmetic, erase threats, prune aberration, reset equilibrium. The dawn was an equation out of bounds. Elias, Maya said through blood-choked teeth, the seed can't outride a prime protocol forever. We need asymmetric input, chaos variables it can't precompute. He caught on instantly. Humans. He opened wideband broadcast, not words, but live neural splice. He offered every civilian, every pilot, every trembling soul a link handhold into the seed's root. Consent flared across dashboards faster than polling code could register. 100,000 minds lashed into the dawn. Artists' fever painting, miners remembering cave hymns, a grief-struck widower refusing to forget the sin of his lover's hair. Each thought unique, irrational, non-derivable. Chaos flooded the seed. Probability convulsed. Suddenly future trees the warden had pruned regrew wild, branches knotting into fractals the prime protocol had never cached. Causality jittered. The next moment became undecidable. In that undecidability, Elias found a blade. He rerouted Corland's power, overcharged by the sacrifice of every last curator reactor they had seized. Leah whispered coordinates, one single facet on the warden's hull where spectrum phase noise dipped 0.5%, maybe structural weakness or maybe just overlooked decimal. Good enough. The dawn fired. A spike of anti-time bored into the warden. Reality shattered locally, an adjective newly relevant when discussing gods. A wound opened, and through it Maya glimpsed not machinery but a boulevard of hushed light where figures of pure concept walked, cultivating timelines like orchard keepers. One figure turned, faceless yet attentive, tilting its head in mild surprise, as though a termite mound had launched a stone and somehow chipped marble. The wound sealed. The warden recoiled. Across its mirrored span cracks spider-webbed, leaking motes of midnight that hiss like dying quasars. It spoke at last, a waveform folding across all channels. Aberrant vector. Purge deferred. Analysis required. Deferred. Not defeated. But in Cosmic Ledger, a postponement was victory enough. The warden slipped from standard perception, compressing into a singular note that plunged beyond measurable spectrum. Its departure unclenched physics. The null shell steadied without Maya's constant bloodletting. She sagged inside the pod, lungs burning for breaths her body had forgotten to take. All harvesters in the garden lay ruined, their embryos smoldering within quantum slag. Curator archives streamed into dawn drives for later study. Refugee craft reformed muster, battered yet ablaze with newfound ferocity. They had watched gods blink first. Maya unlatched the pod. Leah waited with a medkit, eyes rimmed red. "Sister, how many pieces are you in?" "Enough to fight again," Maya rasped, voice a gravel road. Elias joined them on the gantry, helmet tucked beneath one arm. Around him Tech's already welded armor patches, painting over scorch lines. He gestured at the void where the warden had fled. "First scout in 7 months," they said. He spat a humorless laugh. "Clock reset. Bet we've got weeks." Maya studied the survivors' flotilla, jury-rigged lifeships bristling now with curator cannons, refugee captains learning gunnery on the fly. "Then we teach faster," she said. "We seed every colony with chaos anchors, train every child to dream lopsided. We make unpredictability our shield." Leah's tired grin flickered. "Weaponize imagination." "Poetic." "Pragmatic," Maya corrected, though a corner of her mouth twitched upward. Elias keyed shipwide comms. "Dawn family, gardens burned. Next coordinates uploading. Edge of triangulum rift. Signal strength implies 5 more nurseries." He paused, voice softening. "You've given blood, tears, memories. I can't promise home again, only the road. If that's too much." No one cut the channel, not even to breathe. He closed comms, looked to Maya. "They stay." She placed a hand on the bulkhead. The metal under her palm hummed approval. "Then so do we." Engine spooled, shaking frost from armor plates newly welded. Refugee lantern ships swung into escort crescents, their patchwork hulls aglitter with hope's first graffiti, spray-painted comets, vulgar jokes, a single neon line shouting "We refuse the dark." The Dawn cracked a slipgate of her own making. Before entering, Maya glanced once at the gas giant below, storm still lit by pod wreck embers. She whispered a vow for those erased into nothing, a promise that the architects would learn human names the way stone learns water, not quickly, but utterly. Slipspace yawned. The fleet plunged in carrying chaos, memory, and a species unbroken one tonight that now knew to tremble. The slipstream howled, an ultraviolet bladed wind that shaved fractals off the Dawn shields as the fleet knifed toward the triangulum rift. Plasma contrails peeled away like comet tails, carving bright inscriptions through vacuum so cold even radiation sluggishly crawled. Inside the command spire, Maya floated in partial gravnull, boots anchored only by magnetics when memory lag made her knees buckle. The Axiom Seed's pulse was a second heartbeat now, every thrum dragging ghost currents of other timelines across her skin like static. Each brush left images that weren't hers. A boy on Venus lighting a candle for a mother still alive. A Martian clan elder hammering sun-tempered iron into a blade no catalog could name. A laughter storm at some future harvest festival that might never exist unless this mission succeeded. Leah's voice cut through the sensory haze. External quantum weather shows metastable fault lines. Translation burn coming up hard. She spoke with a calm that belied the bandage crossing her brow and the tremor in her hands. The seed's residue was poisoning her neurons faster than Mednanites could patch, but she refused off-duty cycles. Every time she tried to sleep, the architect's boulevard of light stalked her dreams. Elias ran a fingertip over the hollow NAV surface. Fault line or ambush? Both, Lopez offered from Sensory Pit B, a former smuggler whose side-eye street smarts translated to uncanny threat pattern intuition. Fragmented tachyon drifts on the rim. Something's waiting, deep cloak. Maya sifted the fleet's nervous murmur channeled through the seed. 1,000 spirits breathing in unison, yet each undeniably alone. She widened the link enough that her thoughts carried to every bridge without need of calm static. Hold course. Disruption is the objective. Fear only delays ignition. No one answered aloud, but she felt the collective chin lift ripple. A stubborn, quintessentially human fine. We'll punch through anyway. The rift mouth gaped ahead, an irregular polygon of warped space-time, edges flickering like torn film frames stitched by thunder. Shredded dwarf stars spiraled into its throat, silver dust orbiting in nothingness, where even Hawking radiation forgot to exist. Curator Archives called it Graveyard Threshold M13, first test site for nascent harvester larvae. From here, the architects had once monitored cosmic cul-de-sacs, pruning civilizations before curiosity or desperation birthed unpredictable technologies. That history, carved in cold mathematics, was about to meet recursion error. The dawn crested the event horizon with the nonchalance of a shark slipping through kelp. Slip plates along her hull flared obsidian white, capturing the rift's kill fields and folding them into mirrored cusps that flung themselves back like boomerangs into higher dimensions. Behind her, refugee cutters and brawler corvettes darted, hugging the slipstream's lee to avoid tearing apart. Inside the rift, geometry convulsed. Stars bled oval shadows, comet trails scribbled right angles across black. At the coordinate nexus, 9 spheres the size of Ceres glowed ember red. Nursery nodes 5 through 13, each a womb for harvester clutches. Webbing of golden lattice connected them to a central spinal station, a titanic hexagonal citadel whose surfaces flowered with kaleidoscopic script. Architect craftsmanship, flawless and foul. Before anyone could gasp, the seed screamed, raw awareness clawing at Maya's cortex. Vector inbound. They blinked onto every sensor simultaneously, silvery tetrahedrons, each 40 meters from tip to tip, swarming like wasps. Their surfaces rippled with sublogic gates that solved and rebuilt themselves trillions of times per second. The seed identified them as equation sensors, anti-chaos drones tasked with deleting improbable events. Humanity's existence inside a death garden qualified. Railguns roared. Shots curved, not from bad aim, but from probability at its mid-flight. Slugs emerged sideways, ripping past friendlies. 2 torpedo cutters vaporized under friendly fire loops. Panic pricked the link. Maya forced calm into the weave. She shifted Dawn's ordnance pattern, loading story shells. Munitions encoded with stochastic microfungi generated from the seed's civilian chorus, nursery rhymes, unfinished poems, jokes half-remembered from dying fathers. As the drones sliced through space, story shells burst silent fireworks of nonsense code that rewrote the drone's near field with pun, paradox, cheap slapstick. Logic gates jammed. Some sensors spun inert, others collapsed into metallic confetti that tinkled like sleet against the Dawn's armor. The fleet cheered in wideband whoops. Sensors were demigods to lesser species. Humanity just prank clowned them into scrap. Elias pressed advantage. Hit node relays. Don't touch Central Citadel yet. If they ruptured the link web first, latent harvester embryos would desync from architect oversight. Half-baked. Easier to kill. Skirmish wings streaked out. A Proxima salvage mule, thrusters jury-rigged far beyond spec, rammed the first sphere's anchor line, spilling molten alloy that cooled into storm cloud spirals across the lattice. A Jovian freighter turned warbarge drilled hull-mounted mining lasers into Node 2, carving glyphs that stuttered, then went black. The embryos inside shuddered. Cracks spread like frost. But architects disliked unscheduled amendments. The citadel bloomed. Petal fins unfolded, revealing a mooring of prism lenses. Bolts of silent white lashed out. Where they clipped metal, ships froze mid-maneuver, trapped in microloops 90 picoseconds long, still alive, doomed to experience eternity inside a breath. The fleet's formation shattered, vessels veering wide to dodge temporal snares. Maya shoved her consciousness into the seed's deepest grotto, hauling on threads of intersection. She reopened the chaos anchor, channel, beckoned volunteers. Memories flooded. A belt pilot's first snow on Mars, the tactile scrape of sand under a lunar colony child's fingernails, an aged composer's regret over the symphony he never finished. Nonsense and nuance. The seed metabolized each, regurgitating perturbation pulses that turned snared white bolts into jittery pink strobe. Ship time resumed. Captains shouted alive again. Still, the Citadel's mass dwarfed their combined fleet. Its petals spun, gathering a singularity charge that made sensors cough blood-red graphs. Leah's metrics predicted a horizon spike. It would birth a micro-black hole, aim it like a slug, and context erase any object within 50,000 kilometers. Dawn sat at 38. Fuse drives, Leah rasped across the link. We slingshot the hole. Mechanics choked. Fusing drives meant welding half the core's safety shutters open. A wrong oscillation would implode the seed. Maya felt the risk swirl. Acceptable. Do it, she ordered. Weld bots sparked along spinal corridors. Reactors vented ghost blue plasma. As the Citadel's petals aligned, birthing singularity glare, Dawn's engines roared anti-phase, wrapping the ship in a Mobius sheath of compressed posture. The black hole slug fired. Space twisted into a bullet of nothing. Dawn pivoted, slid sideways across its ergosphere, stole rotational momentum, and whiplashed the slug backward along a bent manifold of geodesics. The hole rebounded into Node 3, swallowing half the sphere, lattice, and 20 support drones before evaporating itself in hawking shriek. The impact flung fresh chaos over everything. Embryostasis cracked to pieces. Rift plasma fountains surged through spidered hulls. Citadel's spindle foundations flickered where anchor feedback overloaded. A lull. Then from far side of the garden, the Citadel disgorged shapes like cloaked giants. Architect Warden Knights, each 100 meters tall, limbs threaded with nanoviolin strings that hummed cosmic chord progressions. Their heads faceted mirrors reflecting possibilities that hadn't happened yet. Each step across void left footprints of potential futures that blossomed before withering. They marched straight for the dawn. Despair quivered across untrained minds. Maya gripped the seed, amplifying her voice until it rang in hearts. They are not gods. They are gardeners afraid of weeds. We are the weeds. Grow wild. The fleet answered with fury. Combat drones fused into haphazard golems of welded plating, launching themselves like brawlers to tackle Warden Knights, buying seconds. Seconds enough. Leah and Lopez sprinted to the seed chamber. Ice rhymed Leah's lashes. Quantum frost leaked around interlocks. We can't outmuscle, she said, so we metattack. She typed command roots, embedding sentient metadata inside the seed's resonance coil, tagging each Warden Knight as artistic installation. The universe, obedient to architect law, forbade destruction of recognized art. An irony hack. The seed pulsed, the tag propagated. Warden Knights froze mid-step, their directive hierarchy jammed. They couldn't fight, wouldn't risk damaging canonical art. Dawn's guns finished them with relativistic rail spears. Mirrored torsos fractured into collided that sang mid-break like shattering crystal goblets. Node 4 ruptured, 5 imploded. With each fall, the Citadel dimmed. Its petals tried closing but jammed on fractured locks. Maya sensed fear, not emotional but code-level uncertainty. The architects had not modeled resilient chaos this rich. She tapped fleet broadcast. Point all main arrays at the Citadel's petal nexus. On my mark, feed it every unfinished song, every unresolved equation, every cliffhanger in human archives. Data cannons charged. Petabytes screamed through vacuum as intangible ordnance. Shakespeare's missing play fragments, puzzle boxes unsolved since pre-Exodus Earth, half-recorded bedtime stories, and old skydiver's terminal velocity dream scribbled but never lived. The Citadel's interpreters seized up trying to close so many narrative loops at once. Lattice fonts glitched into childlike doodles. Petals spasmed, then sheared away, spinning idly into the rift void. Elias raised an arm, slit-palmed to let blood patter onto the deck, ancient field right among Martian clan captains. For Arkhangelsk, he hissed. Dawn's spinal lance-lit one final time, overskipping safe amplitude. The beam speared the Citadel's exposed heart. For an instant, everyone heard a note, pure, lonely, almost regretful. Then the entire structure collapsed, folding through itself until a pinprick of darkness flashed ultraviolet and was no more. Silence flooded the rift. Remaining spheres, anchorless, drifted like dying coals before flickering out. Not one embryo survived ignition. For the first time in millennia, a harvester garden lay barren. But victory cracked open deeper dread. Sensors caught shockwaves of subspace telemetry, distress pings cascading beyond Andromeda vectors. Architects were calling larger measures. The fleet had weeks, maybe. The seed whispered glimpses, a matriarchal supernode rousing near the sculptor wall, a forge moon spinning warframes under Betelgeuse's dying crimson light, entire reality suture fleets queuing at dimension boundaries. Back in medical, Maya's hands trembled as the seed receded to baseline hum. Leah dabbed antiseptic on a bleeding temple. Sister, she murmured, the faster we win, the faster they escalate. There's no ceiling to this. Maya stared at her blood-spotted gloves. Then we redefine win. Meaning, we don't just burn gardens. We plant new forests, worlds laced so thick with living, contradictory stories that any algorithmic purge fails on compute cost alone. We turn every colony into a paradox orchard. Leah's tired laugh cracked into something bright. Weaponized mythopoesis. Survival by narrative density, Maya agreed. A reality too complex to delete. Elias limped through the hatch, arm and sling where a feedback arc had scorched bone. Set course. Sigma Puppus cluster, Maya said. Curator archives flagged 37 dormant nests. We'll torch them, then leave behind seeding codices, let locals weave chaos before the architects can prune. He nodded once, no hesitation. Outside, hull team spray-painted fresh graffiti where rail spears had scorched plating. We refuse the dark now sprawled alongside new slogans. Make waves not sense, error 404, linear fate not found. Humans are a patch note. Thrusters rumbled. The fleet banked from the dying rift, engines blazing azure. As stars wheeled, Maya closed her eyes, tethered to a universe suddenly pregnant with impossible possibilities, and smiled because, for the first time since the harvesters woke, the night itself felt a little uncertain. The Sigma-Puppis cluster emerged from hyperslip as a bouquet of amber suns blazing through pastel nebulae. Gas clouds writhed in slow ballet, painting the void with saffron streaks where infant stars crackled behind gauze veils. At the navigational core, Dawn's hull rattled with quantum static, an omen that the seed felt predators near. Curator archives had logged 37 dormant nurseries in these reaches, but sensors flagged 52 signals now, their chrysalis emissions layered like overlapping heartbeats. The architects were bulk spawning, a panicked answer to humanity's vandalism. Minutes after translation, the fleet intercepted a distress shard, a barbed chunk of data screaming straight into every comm buffer, no origin tag. Dawn's filter stalled, uncertain whether to quarantine or listen. In the command spire, Maya pinched the shard between thumb-forefinger icons. It bloomed into an audiovisual diorama of a planet ringed by aquamarine storms. Surface settlements burned in neat concentric circles, precision scorches that erased infrastructure and spared the forest between townships. In one corner, a sigil pulsed, 3 nested spirals, the mark of Crown Refuge, an agrarian alliance believed extinct after earlier harvester waves. Elias leaned in. Brown nodded. Population's what, 70,000 at best? We break focus to save them. Seed risk climbs. The architects choose deliberate cruelty, Maya replied. Gaze steel. That reshapes our priorities. We deny them satisfaction before we deny them assets. She opened the fleet channel. Task Delta 6, Shield Crown Refuge. Everyone else, prep for orchard seeding once the sky's clear. No dissent, though Captain swallowed unease at splitting guns. The fleet vector shifted. Dawn dove first into the planet's magnetosphere, trailing interceptors like silverfish. In low orbit, the enemy revealed itself. 3 statuary frigates, sculptures of mirrored basalt orbiting nose down like vultures. Their prows emitted cones of data-white light. Wherever the cones touched ground, reality etched away into perfect glass discs 50 meters deep, a deletion burn. Architect's new tool, clean erasure that left specimens for later study. Leah's telemetry pulsed. Those beams rely on spectral isolation, strip bandwidth, and they starve. She threw a bundle of coordinates onto the net, her fingers a tremor blur across haptic keys. Aim harmonic jammers there, and there. Belt miners piloting cobbled tugboats swung cargo cranes turned antenna masts, broadcasting improvised symphonies of detuned violin notes, whale song, and overlapping children's laughter pitched into fractal echoes. The jammers punched holes in the beam's frequency lattices. Light cones sputtered into prismatic spray that rained harmlessly through the upper troposphere. The statuary frigates responded by fracturing their hulls. Sections sheared apart and reshaped into needle drones that fell planetward in meteoric streaks. Ground defenses were non-existent. Crown settlers farmed timber and philosophy, not wars. Maya routed planetary broadcast through Dawn's amplifiers and spoke. Shelter beneath the dense groves. Trust the wind's story. We are the storm's shepherds. The phrase was nonsense to military doctrine, yet the seed modulated her words with undertones that triggered instinctive obedience among listeners. Villagers sprinted into whispering woods whose boughs swayed like guardians, and the falling needles found only empty plazas. Above, Warden Knights materialized, smaller than those at the rift yet still towering, each bearing arm blades of event horizon glass. Dawn's rail spears hissed molten trails, but the Knights' armor folded probability, turning direct trajectories into corkscrews around their torsos. Elias spat curses. Need a new vector. Something Messier. Maya summoned Lopez's improvisational genius. He proposed scroll mines, clusters of graffiti drones loaded with aerosol canisters. Dawn's fabricators printed thousands in minutes. Launched into the battle, they swarmed Warden Knights, vomiting neon paint that dried instant hard with chaotic molecular bonds. Probability fold fields snagged on the chaos varnish. One Knight's left leg locked mid-stride, inertia toppled it, and a ground-to-orbit tug lanced a fusion bolt through its visor. Another Knight, overloaded with clashing hues, convulsed as its circuitry tried parsing colors outside rational gamut. It imploded, leaving only paint smoke shaped like a mocking grin. The third Knight learned and changed tactics. It ignored weapon fire, instead reeling out threads of chronal silk toward the planet's moon. Threads fused with regolith, forming a sling poised to hurl the moon as kinetic hammer. Leah's horror spiked the link. Collision energy would sterilize half the cluster. Maya saw one option: convert Dawn into countermass. She linked with Elias mid-thought. He was already plotting the slingshot. Engines thundered to overload. The fleet's chorus poured defiance into the seed, feeding it wild futures, road trips that never happened, lost loves reunited, theoretical jokes with no punchline. The seed drank improbability and rewrote Newton. Dawn blurred into a shard of dawn-colored light, intersected the chronal sling, and ripped it from the moon like thread from a loom. The Knight recoiled, stumbled, and Crown's own upper air jet streams, swollen by storm disruptors, yanked the giant into atmosphere where it burned a streak clear enough to draw cheers groundside. Victory rang, but cost revealed itself quick. Dawn's portside reactor gloated in alarm red. The seed's coherence dropped 2%. Each impossible maneuver skinned soul and steel thinner. Crown Refuge hailed them. Lean-faced elders offered thanks in lilting prose, begged for no evacuation. The land remembers our footsteps, they said. We would rather risk erasure here than die rootless among stars. Maya honored that wish. Instead, she deployed Paradox Orchard kits, crates of morphic seed tech encoded with irreconcilable myth fragments. Once planted, their blossoms would weave localized narrative storms, fairy tale logic, trickster winds, love songs that confused entropy. Crown people accepted the gift solemnly, promised to cultivate complexity like sacred grain. As Dawn climbed back to high orbit, drone footage captured the first Paradox sapling's unfurling rainbow leaves that rustled alternate histories with every breeze. The planet's probability signature spiked into humming asymmetry. Future sensors would choke on its signal. The fleet regrouped at L Point Shadow, nursing wounds. Engineers patched Dawn's fissured plating with Curator smart foam that glittered like starlight. Medical bays overflowed. Volunteers slept along corridors, for lines snaking past lockers. In quiet alcoves, poets scribbled new lullabies to replenish chaos archives. A tape deck in Cargo Bay 12 looped an old Terran blues riff, and someone harmonized with a battered sax, turning steel girders into resonant cathedral for sorrow and resolve alike. Leah limped into the command spire on a cane woven from retired nanofiber rifles. She displayed fresh skin plates, architect spornets calcifying near Beetlejuice. 1 month, maybe less, before full armada wakes. Her pupils shimmered argent, seed backlash creeping again. Maya rested a glove on her sister's shoulder. We've lit wildfires from Sol to Sigma Puppis. Time to fan the blaze. Targets. Matriarch Bastion on the sculptor wall. The curator logs call it Ansible Prime, architect subqueen coordinating all dormants inside a 10 megaparsec volume. If we hack its broadcast lattice, we overwrite their gospel with our own. Elias's grin carried battle-fatigue cracks. We'll be lone arrowheads at that wall. Not lone, Maya corrected. She opened long-range wideband and spoke one word. Roustabout. The code echoed into black. A minute later replies chimed, outlaw clans, rogue AIs, nomad fleets of decommissioned war cylinders. Each answered with a vector pledge. Seed frequencies twined. A constellation of rebellious sparks flickered into being. One final preparation remained. The seed, stretched ragged, required distributed hosts. Volunteers queued for graft pods despite cautions. Among them stood the pacifist saboteur who had placed the first singularity charges, fingertips ink-stained from orchard planting. He smiled shyly at Maya. Peace needs teeth, he said, stepping into the pod. When the graph cycle finished, Dawn's neural web pulsed with dozens of new heartbeats. Symphony timbre shifted, deeper yet more playful, like wind chimes laughing in a storm. Probability around the fleet warped subtle, sensor errors now rhymed with Shakespearean couplets, engine coolant burbled jazz bass lines. Disorder gained structure, structure bent lovingly toward unpredictability. Course windows aligned. Engines thundered. Behind them Crown Refuge's Paradox Grove shimmered, petals scattering seeds on solar currents destined to drift across light years and root disobedience wherever they landed. The sculptor wall awaited, a celestial barricade wrought by a civilization that believed neatness was safety. Dawn and her wildfire flotilla meant to spray untidy graffiti across its pristine face, turn the wall into a canvas of living contradiction. As slipgate flares framed the bows, Maya exhaled a promise, to the architects, to terrified children on hidden colonies, to herself. We will outdream you. The fleet leapt, trailing a comet tail of ragged hope and impossible stories toward the heart of the enemy's order, ready to teach the universe how beautifully a weed can bloom when the gardener turns away.